The fluorescent lights of the municipal courthouse cast a harsh, unforgiving glow on the worn linoleum floor. Jasmine Robinson stood perfectly still, her emerald green blazer pressed immaculately, her leather portfolio clutched against her side like a shield. She was used to standing before crowds. 5 years of teaching high school had prepared her for facing challenging situations with grace. But this courtroom felt different. Around her, the morning court session hummed with a low, anxious energy. People shuffled papers, whispered to attorneys, and avoided making direct eye contact. Jasmine had arrived early, meticulously organized, with every document related to her minor traffic violation neatly arranged. Her traffic stop had been brief. A broken taillight she hadn't yet realized was damage, discovered during a routine evening drive home from grading papers. When she had been pulled over 2 weeks earlier, the interaction had been brief and seemingly unremarkable. The officer had been professional, if somewhat brusque. She'd received a citation and promised to fix the taillight immediately, which she had done within 48 hours. Today was simply a formality, or so she believed. Her daughter's upcoming science fair project drifted through her mind. Kayla had been working on a complex model of the solar system, and Jasmine had promised to help her finish the final details that evening. She allowed herself a slight smile, a momentary distraction from the sterile courtroom atmosphere. Judge Robert Henley sat elevated above the proceedings, his silver hair perfectly combed, wire-rimmed glasses perched precisely on the bridge of his nose. From the moment Jasmine approached the bench, she felt a subtle shift in the room's temperature. The judge's gaze seemed to linger just a moment too long, carrying a weight that went beyond professional assessment. "Ms. Robinson," he addressed her, his voice crisp and measured, "you're charged with a vehicle equipment violation. How do you plead?" "Guilty, Your Honor," Jasmine responded clearly, her voice steady. She had been raised to be direct, to take responsibility. Her mother's voice echoed in her mind. Always look people in the eye. Always speak with clarity and respect. What happened next would become etched in Jasmine's memory with crystal clarity. The fine announced was not the standard $50, $100 she had anticipated. Judge Henley's calculations seemed to dance across the courtroom, landing at an astronomical $750, a sum that made her breath catch in her throat. Her mind raced. This wasn't just a fine. This was a potential threat to her carefully balanced life. As a single mother and high school teacher, every dollar was accounted for. Kayla's school supplies, their modest rent, the used car that was their lifeline. Everything hung in a delicate economic balance. The courtroom seemed to blur around the edges. Jasmine watched her own hands, perfectly manicured and suddenly looking small against her portfolio. She saw other defendants that morning, some who seemed to receive markedly different treatment. A whisper of awareness began to form in the back of her mind, a subtle recognition that something wasn't quite right. Little did Jasmine know that this moment, this seemingly routine court appearance, would become the first step in a journey that would challenge everything she understood about justice, fairness, and her own strength. The evening light filtered through the kitchen window of Jasmine's modest apartment, casting long shadows across the spread of bills and receipts. She sat motionless, the court document bearing the $750 fine seeming to mock her careful financial planning. Her fingers traced the numbers, each digit feeling like a weight pulling her deeper into uncertainty. Kayla, her 12-year-old daughter, moved quietly around the kitchen. She knew something was wrong. Her mother's usual after-school routine of animated storytelling and shared snacks had been replaced by a tense silence. The half-finished solar system project sat on the dining table, a reminder of the dreams that now felt threatened. "Mom." Kayla's voice broke through Jasmine's concentration. "Is everything okay?" Jasmine forced a smile, a skill she had mastered during years of protecting her daughter from life's harsher realities. "Everything's fine, baby," she said, her voice catching slightly. But fine was the furthest thing from the truth. The next morning, Jasmine arrived at Roosevelt High School earlier than usual. As a dedicated science teacher, she had always prided herself on being prepared. But today, Preparation meant something different. She pulled out her phone during her planning period, making a series of calculated calls that would determine their immediate future. First, the electric company. A negotiated payment plan pushed to the very limit of their grace period. Then, her car insurance. Could she adjust the coverage to reduce the monthly payment? Each call was a careful dance of diplomacy and desperation. Her colleague and closest friend at the school, Elena Martinez, noticed the change immediately. During their shared lunch break, she found Jasmine staring blankly at her half-eaten sandwich. "Talk to me," Elena said, her voice soft but firm. She knew Jasmine was not one to easily share her burdens. The story spilled out: the traffic stop, the court appearance, the inexplicable fine that seemed to defy logic. Elena listened intently, her professional background in social work providing a compassionate ear. "This isn't right," Elena finally said. "Have you spoken with Marcus?" She was referring to Jasmine's childhood friend and local attorney. The mention of Marcus brought a glimmer of hope. They had grown up together in the same neighborhood, their families close-knit and supportive. If anyone could provide perspective, it would be him. That evening, Jasmine made the call. Marcus listened carefully as she recounted every detail of the court appearance. His silence was more telling than words. Something about her story didn't add up. "I'll need to see the court documents," he said finally. "But something feels off about this entire situation." As she put down the phone, Jasmine looked at Kayla, who was carefully painting the styrofoam planets for her science project. The solar system model represented possibility, each planet perfectly balanced, orbiting with precise mathematical certainty. If only life could be so predictable. She thought about her upcoming mortgage payment, the pending school expenses for Kayla, the professional development conference she had been hoping to attend. The $750 fine wasn't just a number. It was a potential derailment of everything she had worked so hard to build. But Jasmine Robinson was not someone who broke easily. If anything, pressure had always made her more determined. This fine, this unexpected challenge, would not be the end of her story. It would be just another obstacle to overcome. As night fell, she began meticulously organizing her documents, preparing for whatever might come next. The fight was just beginning. The public library became Jasmine's sanctuary of investigation. Its quiet study rooms and extensive archives transformed into her personal research center. Every free moment between teaching classes and caring for Kayla was dedicated to understanding the intricate details of her situation. Marcus had provided her with initial guidance. "Document everything," he'd advised. "Every single detail matters." Her first step was requesting her court transcripts. The process wasn't simple. It required multiple phone calls, careful navigation of bureaucratic systems, and persistent follow-up. Each request was met with subtle resistance, small obstacles that would have deterred a less determined individual. At the school, Jasmine's colleague Elena introduced her to Robert Green, a retired court clerk who now substitute taught at Roosevelt High. His decades of judicial system experience proved invaluable. Over carefully brewed coffee in the teacher's lounge, he listened intently to her story. "Judicial discretion is a complex thing," Robert explained, his weathered hands wrapped around his mug. "Fines aren't just numbers. They reflect a system's underlying assumptions." Inspired by his words, Jasmine began a meticulous process of comparative analysis. She collected public court records, focusing on traffic violations from the past 2 years. Spreadsheets became her new language, rows and columns telling stories beyond mere numbers. Her methodology was scientific, approaching the problem like one of her complex classroom experiments. She categorized violations, compared fine amounts, and looked for patterns. Each evening, after Kayla went to bed, she would spread her documents across the kitchen table, highlighting, cross-referencing, creating a visual map of potential discrepancies. The data began to reveal subtle but significant patterns. Traffic violations for individuals from different backgrounds seemed to carry dramatically different financial consequences. What appeared random initially started showing a disturbing consistency. Marcus became her sounding board. Their late-night phone conversations dissected each piece of evidence. "We need more than just a feeling," he would remind her. "We need concrete, undeniable documentation." Jasmine's teaching background proved surprisingly helpful. Her skills in research, critical analysis, and patient investigation became her most powerful tools. She understood that true understanding came from careful observation, not emotional reaction. Her school principal, Dr. Thompson, noticed the subtle change in her demeanor. During her performance review, he commented on her increased focus and determination. "You seem more driven lately," he observed. "Just exploring some interesting research," Jasmine responded with a measured smile. The breakthrough came unexpectedly. A conversation with an administrative assistant at the courthouse revealed a filing system that allowed her to cross-reference more comprehensive records. Each document became a puzzle piece, slowly revealing a larger, more complex picture. Kayla watched her mother's transformation with a mixture of curiosity and admiration. "You're like a detective," she said one evening, watching her mother meticulously organize documents. Jasmine smiled. "More like a scientist," she corrected. "We follow the evidence, wherever it leads." By the end of the month, her initial scattered suspicions had transformed into a comprehensive, data-driven narrative. The evidence was mounting, not as an accusation, but as a careful, methodical exploration of a system that demanded closer examination. Something significant was taking shape, a story of resilience, careful investigation, and the pursuit of understanding. The community center buzzed with quiet energy on a crisp Thursday evening. Jasmine stood near the back of the room, her hands clasped slightly in front of her, watching as people from different walks of life began to share their experiences. What had started as a small meeting organized by Marcus had transformed into something much larger. Elena had helped her design the community forum, a carefully structured space where individuals could share their stories without judgment. The room represented a mosaic of experiences: teachers, small business owners, service workers, and students, each carrying their own encounters with the judicial system. One by one, people began to speak. A taxi driver described unexpected fines that had nearly caused him to lose his livelihood. A young college student shared how a minor traffic violation had threatened her scholarship. A retired postal worker spoke about years of navigating seemingly arbitrary legal processes. Jasmine listened, her teacher's instinct for observation in full force. Each story was unique, yet they resonated with a similar underlying tone. A sense of being misunderstood, of facing challenges that seemed disproportionate to their actual circumstances. Dr. Thompson, her school principal, had been surprisingly supportive. Sometimes, he told her privately, the most powerful changes begin with someone willing to ask difficult questions. His words echoed in her mind as she watched the community gathering unfold. Marcus had prepared her for this moment. "Evidence is important," he'd said, "but stories create understanding." The room was living proof of that philosophy. Each personal account added depth to the statistical research she had been conducting. Kayla accompanied her that evening, sitting quietly and observing. At 12, she was beginning to understand the complex world of adult challenges. Jasmine caught her daughter's eye occasionally, offering a reassuring smile. This was a lesson far more powerful than any classroom could provide. The local community radio station caught wind of the gathering. A young journalist named David Rodriguez approached Jasmine after the meeting. "This feels like something significant," he said, his notebook already filled with notes. "Would you be willing to share more about your experience?" What began as a personal challenge was slowly transforming into a collective conversation. Social media began to amplify their stories, not as a platform for anger, but as a space for genuine dialogue and understanding. Local educators became particularly interested. A group of social studies teachers approached Jasmine, expressing interest in using her research as a potential case study for exploring systemic fairness. Her methodical approach, scientific, measured, focused on understanding rather than accusation, made her story particularly compelling. The community center meeting became a turning point. It wasn't about creating division, but about building bridges of understanding. Each person who shared their story contributed to a larger narrative of resilience and hope. As the evening wound down, Marcus pulled Jasmine aside. "You've done something remarkable," he said quietly. "You've created a space for people to be heard." Jasmine looked around the room, at the faces that represented countless untold stories, at her daughter watching with growing awareness, at the network of support that was slowly taking shape. This was more than a personal battle. This was about creating meaningful change. The next chapter was just beginning. The law library felt like a cathedral of justice to Marcus. Surrounded by towering shelves of legal volumes, he and Jasmine spread their meticulously collected documents across a massive oak table. Sunlight filtered through tall windows, illuminating their careful investigation. "Every single piece of data matters," Marcus murmured, his fingers tracing the columns of statistical findings. As a local attorney with a reputation for precision, he understood the importance of building an airtight case. Their research had evolved beyond Jasmine's individual experience. What they had uncovered was a pattern of systematic discrepancies in fine assessments. Marcus began drafting a formal complaint, each paragraph carefully constructed like an intricate legal blueprint. Dr. Elena Martinez's professional background in social research proved invaluable. She helped them refine their statistical analysis, providing academic rigor to their findings. Late-night video calls became strategy sessions, with each participant bringing unique expertise. The formal complaint would target not just Judge Henley, but the broader systemic issues within the municipal court system. Marcus knew they couldn't rely on emotional arguments. They needed cold, hard evidence that would withstand intense scrutiny. Jasmine's teaching background became an unexpected asset. Her ability to organize complex information, to present data clearly and objectively, complemented Marcus's legal expertise. Together, they transformed raw information into a compelling narrative of institutional inconsistency. Their first major breakthrough came from an unexpected source. A retired court administrator, hearing about their investigation through mutual connections, reached out with additional historical records. These documents revealed long-standing patterns that had gone unquestioned for years. Kayla watched her mother's transformation with growing admiration. During dinner conversations, she began asking more profound questions about fairness and justice. Jasmine realized this investigation was becoming a powerful learning experience for her daughter. Marcus carefully prepared the legal documentation. The complaint would be filed with the Judicial Conduct Review Board, a process known for its complexity and stringent requirements. Every word, every statistic needed to be precisely documented. "This isn't about punishment," Marcus explained to Jasmine during one of their strategy sessions. "It's about creating meaningful change in the system." The community continued to provide support. The local community center became a hub of information sharing. People who had previously felt voiceless now found a platform to share their experiences. Each story added depth to their growing body of evidence. Dr. Thompson from Roosevelt High offered unexpected support. "Sometimes," he told Jasmine, "the most significant changes begin with someone willing to ask difficult questions." As they prepared the final draft of their complaint, a sense of both nervousness and hope filled the room. This was more than a legal document. It was a testament to resilience, to the power of careful investigation, and to the belief that systemic change is possible. Marcus looked up from the documents, meeting Jasmine's gaze. "Are you ready?" he asked. Jasmine's response was immediate and unwavering. More than ready. The next chapter of their journey was about to begin. A journey that could reshape understanding of justice and fairness. The weight of the investigation pressed against Jasmine like an invisible force. Her classroom, once a sanctuary of scientific exploration and learning, now felt different. Subtle changes crept into her professional life. Hushed conversations that stopped when she entered rooms, curious glances from colleagues, an underlying tension that hadn't existed before. Dr. Thompson called her into his office one crisp autumn morning. His office walls were adorned with educational achievements and inspiring quotes, a testament to years of dedicated leadership. "Ms. Robinson," he began, his tone measured. "I've been hearing some discussions about your current personal project." Jasmine sat straighter, her professional composure intact. She understood the delicate balance she was navigating. As a respected high school science teacher, her professional reputation was both her shield and her vulnerability. "I'm committed to my responsibilities here," she responded carefully. "My work in the classroom remains my primary focus." The subtext was clear. Her investigation was drawing attention. Not all of it positive. Some administrators viewed her pursuit of justice as a potential disruption. Others saw her as a troublemaker. At home, the impact was equally profound. Kayla became her strongest supporter and most insightful observer. "Mom," she would say during their evening conversations, "you're like those scientists who discovered something nobody wanted to see." The comparison was more accurate than Kayla realized. Jasmine's approach remained scientific, objective, methodical, driven by evidence rather than emotion. Each challenge became another data point, another opportunity to understand the complex system she was investigating. Her financial struggles intensified. The potential professional repercussions of her investigation loomed large. Additional legal fees, research expenses, and the ongoing financial strain of the original fine created a constant undercurrent of stress. Marcus became more than just her legal advisor. He was a crucial emotional support system. "Remember," he would remind her during their strategy sessions, "this isn't just about you. This is about creating meaningful change." Elena Martinez continued to provide professional and emotional support. Her background in social work gave her unique insights into the psychological challenges of challenging institutional systems. Some nights, the weight of the investigation felt overwhelming. After Kayla went to bed, Jasmine would spread her documents across the kitchen table, reviewing every detail. Doubt would creep in, momentary whispers of uncertainty that she would methodically push aside. Her teaching philosophy became her greatest strength. In her classroom, she had always taught students to question, to investigate, to seek understanding beyond surface-level explanations. Now she was living those principles. The community continued to rally around her. Small acts of support arrived unexpectedly. A colleague covering a class so she could meet with her legal team, a neighbor offering to help with Kayla's after-school activities, anonymous donations to support her legal fund. Each challenge became a lesson in resilience. Jasmine understood that true change rarely came without personal cost. Her investigation was transforming her, not just as a potential catalyst for systemic change, but as a human being understanding her own capacity for courage. As another evening settled around her, documents spread before her, Jasmine realized something profound. This journey was no longer just about a fine or a single court appearance. It was about understanding justice, challenging assumptions, and creating a pathway for meaningful transformation. The State Judicial Review Board conference room felt unusually quiet. Typically a place of bureaucratic procedure, it now hummed with an unprecedented tension. Marcus had meticulously prepared their presentation, transforming columns of data into a compelling narrative of systemic inconsistency. David Rodriguez from the local radio station had been following the story, his coverage transforming a local issue into a matter of broader public interest. His latest report highlighted the statistical disparities uncovered by Jasmine's investigation, bringing unprecedented attention to the municipal court's practices. Judge Robert Henley sat at the far end of the conference table, his posture rigid, decades of judicial authority seemingly challenged by the carefully compiled evidence before him. The documents spread across the table told a story far more complex than a simple traffic violation. Jasmine's research revealed a pattern that went beyond individual bias. Statistical analysis showed consistent discrepancies in fine assessments based on demographic factors. Each number, each percentage point represented real human experiences, lives impacted by seemingly minor judicial decisions. The investigation had attracted attention from unexpected quarters. Professor Linda Harrison from the State University's Legal Research Center reached out, expressing interest in using their findings for a comprehensive study on judicial practices. This isn't about blame, Marcus explained during a strategy meeting. It's about understanding and improving the system. Kayla watched the developments with growing awareness. Dinner conversations at home had transformed into nuanced discussions about justice, systemic challenges, and the power of careful investigation. Her mother had become more than just a teacher. She was a living example of principled action. The community support continued to grow. Local civil rights organizations began to take notice, recognizing the broader implications of Jasmine's carefully documented research. What had begun as a personal challenge was now a catalyst for potential systemic change. Belina Martinez helped organize a series of community forums. These weren't angry protests, but carefully structured conversations about judicial fairness. Experts in law, social policy, and community leadership shared insights, creating a constructive dialogue. Dr. Thompson from Roosevelt High found himself increasingly proud of Jasmine. True education, he would tell colleagues, is about challenging existing systems, not just accepting them. The Judicial Review Board faced a critical decision. The evidence was clear, not as an accusation, but as a comprehensive examination of existing practices. Each document, each statistical analysis represented an opportunity for meaningful improvement. Local media coverage expanded. What had started as a local story was becoming a broader conversation about fairness, justice, and institutional accountability. David Rodriguez's radio reports brought the nuanced details to a wider audience, transforming complex legal concepts into accessible narratives. Marcus worked tirelessly, balancing legal strategy with a commitment to constructive change. "We're not looking to tear down," he would explain. "We're looking to build something better." As the investigation progressed, Jasmine realized something profound. This was no longer just about her individual experience. It was about creating a pathway for understanding, for improvement, for a more just system. The ripples of their investigation were spreading far beyond their initial expectations. Each piece of evidence, each carefully documented finding represented a step towards meaningful change. The state capitol building's hearing room felt different from any courtroom Jasmine had experienced before. Soft natural light filtered through tall windows, illuminating a space of potential transformation. Marcus sat beside her, his professional demeanor a blend of quiet confidence and measured hope. The Judicial Review Board's final report lay on the conference table, a document that represented months of careful investigation, countless personal stories, and the pursuit of systemic understanding. Judge Robert Henley had been removed from his position, not as an act of punishment, but as a necessary step towards institutional reform. Kayla sat in the gallery, her eyes bright with a mixture of pride and understanding. At 13, she had witnessed her mother's journey from a single traffic violation to a catalyst for meaningful change. The lessons learned extended far beyond any legal document. "This isn't about victory," Marcus explained to the assembled journalists and community leaders. "This is about creating a more just system that works for everyone." The financial fine that had initially threatened Jasmine's carefully balanced life had been completely rescinded. More importantly, the municipal court system would implement new guidelines for fine assessments, guidelines that emphasized fairness, consistency, and transparency. Professor Linda Harrison from the State University presented additional research, using Jasmine's investigation as a cornerstone for a broader study on judicial practices. What had begun as a personal challenge had transformed into an academic and social breakthrough. Belina Martinez organized a series of community workshops, using the investigation as a template for understanding systemic challenges. Schools began incorporating these lessons into social studies curricula, teaching students about the power of careful investigation and principled action. Dr. Thompson from Roosevelt High nominated Jasmine for a Community Leadership Award. During the ceremony, he spoke about the true meaning of education, not just about acquiring knowledge, but about challenging existing systems and creating positive change. The local radio station, through David Rodriguez's continued coverage, helped share the story nationally. Listeners from across the country reached out, sharing their own experiences and finding inspiration in Jasmine's methodical approach. Financial compensation came not just in the form of rescinded fines, but through speaking engagements and consulting opportunities. Jasmine found herself invited to educational conferences, legal symposiums, and community leadership events. "I'm still a teacher first," she would often say, maintaining the principled approach that had guided her entire journey. Kayla watched her mother's transformation with growing admiration. Their dinner conversations had become profound explorations of justice, systemic change, and personal responsibility. What began as a challenging experience had become a powerful learning opportunity for their entire family. The investigation had never been about anger or revenge. It was about understanding, about creating pathways for meaningful dialogue and improvement. Each challenge had been approached with scientific precision, emotional intelligence, and an unwavering commitment to fairness. As the sun set on the day of the final hearing, Jasmine realized the true victory wasn't in the documents or the legal outcomes. It was in the conversations started, the minds opened, the systems challenged. Her daughter approached, giving her a tight hug. "I'm proud of you, Mom," Kayla whispered. Jasmine smiled, understanding that some victories are measured not in courtrooms, but in moments of human connection and hope. The journey continues.